not good enough.
We'll move to questions without notice. Senator Dodson.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Colbeck. The Morrison government promised 4 million coronavirus vaccines would be administered by the end of March. How many vaccines have been administered to date, and how many will be administered by the 31st of March?
The Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President, and thanks, Senator Dodson, for the question. Mr President, Senator's right. The government laid out a plan to roll out vaccination to Australians across the country to protect them against COVID-19 and to, of course, allow the Australian economy to return to normal. Well, Mr President, I'll take the interjection, and I think it is going quite well, Mr President. We've had some interruption to our supply from international sources, and Mr President, everybody would understand that, Mr President. And so, to date, over 200,000 Australians have received their vaccination across the country, and that number continues. That number continues to ramp up as we extend the rollout of vaccination. And Mr President, today we've announced that the facilities, the GP services that will start vaccinating Australians, over 1,000 sites around the country, in Phase 1B as of next week. We continue to build and grow the vaccination process for Australia as vaccines become available and as the capacity of the system is built, Mr President. So we have today vaccinated over 200,000 Australians, and we continue to grow that. We continue to build the capacity of the system in Australia to do that through GPs as of next week, through Commonwealth vaccination clinics, through those processes, and of course the states are currently rolling out their vaccines at varying rates, I must admit, Mr President, but the states are rolling out their vaccines to their frontline health workers as a part of Phase 1A, Mr President.
Order. Senator Colbeck, time for the order on my left. Senator Dodson, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. The Prime Minister has told this parliament that economic confidence will be, and I quote, reinforced by the rollout of the vaccination program. What impact will the Morrison government's failure to deliver on its promise to administer 4,000 vaccines by the end of March have on the economy and jobs?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm glad someone else has trouble with numbers, Mr President, and I accept that the number that Senator Dodson was talking about was 4 million, not 4,000. So, Mr President, I reject the base premise of the question that Senator Dodson put in the context of where the government's situation sits. He's right, though, in the context of the confidence that it will give to Australians as the vaccine rolls out, Mr President. But as we all know, we have had some constraint in supply from overseas, Mr President. We have had some constraint in supply from overseas, Mr President, and the opposition might like to try and downplay that, but that is a reality. We've always accepted that was an issue that we might confront, but we are in a very fortunate position, Mr President, to have sovereign supply in this country, and we will continue to roll that out in the interest of Australians.
Time for the answer has expired. Order. Senator Dodson, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Given the effect of the slow rollout of the vaccination program on the economy and jobs, is the Morrison government reconsidering ending JobKeeper in just 11 days?
Senator Colbeck.
Mr President, the government's position with respect to JobKeeper, I think, is very well understood. That has been made public on a number of occasions, and so that is exceptionally well understood, Mr. President. But we will continue to build and grow the rollout of the vaccine with the objective of having Australians have their first dose of the vaccine by the end of October, which was always our target, Mr. President. We said that we would start the vaccination process in February, and we've done that. We've said that we would start the rollout of Phase 1B in March, and we are doing that, Mr. President. And we will continue to build and develop the rollout of vaccines across the country to ensure that Australians can be protected from coronavirus and, Mr. President, that the Australian economy can continue to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Order. Senator McDonald.
The question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne. Will the Minister update the Senate on the impact of COVID-19 on Papua New Guinea and advise how Australia is supporting our close friend and neighbour?
The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank Senator McDonald for her very important question. Mr. President, as the Prime Minister and I announced this morning, Australia is standing with Papua New Guinea as they respond to a serious and widespread outbreak in COVID cases. The Prime Minister, the Minister for International Development and the Pacific, and I and our High Commissioner in Port Moresby have been in regular contact with our Papua New Guinea colleagues and the Papua New Guinea government on how we can partner to assist in the response effort. Mr. President, 2,479 cases have been officially reported, which is a surge of over 1,180 since the 27th of February. While the outbreak is concentrated in Port Moresby, there are cases in provinces across Papua New Guinea, and sadly there have been 31 recorded deaths. Australia has responded to our nearest neighbour and our Pacific family, indeed through the pivot of our aid program, under our Partnerships for Recovery and our COVID-19 response plans. The work that we've announced today is in strong partnership with Papua New Guinea based on their priorities and their needs. I noted earlier that our High Commissioner has been working closely with the Papua New Guinea government to ensure our support is well targeted to Papua New Guinea's needs. Indeed, his team are also part of Papua New Guinea's National COVID-19 Technical Working Group. Over the last week, Australia has assisted to increase the number of beds available for COVID patients and funded St John's Ambulance Service Papua New Guinea to increase its capacity. That's for patient transport, for COVID testing, for PPE distribution to clinics. Australia has also added ballast to Papua New Guinea's National Control Centre. From our own experience, we know that communications, that risk and quarantine management are absolutely critical. We'll work closely with our partners in Papua New Guinea, Mr. President, particularly the health authorities and the National Control Centre in addressing this crisis.
Senator McDonald, a supplementary question.
Will the Minister advise what further support Australia can provide to Papua New Guinea?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With the agreement of Papua New Guinea, Australia will provide 8,000 vaccine doses from our stocks to fill a critical gap, while the COVAX facility, to which Australia has also contributed, prepares to deliver vaccines to Papua New Guinea. That focus will be for frontline workers who are very exposed at the moment. We're also providing $144 million to support Papua New Guinea's priorities and planning in their own vaccine program. With the agreement of Papua New Guinea, Australia is also asking AstraZeneca and European authorities to access 1 million doses of our contracted supplies for Papua New Guinea. Today, Mr. President, Defence will transport 2,000 tents for safe triaging, referral and transfer of patients outside Port Moresby General Hospital. We'll provide surgical masks, P295 respirator masks, protective gowns and goggles, gloves, sanitizer and face shields. And our AUSMAT team, which arrives on Monday, will work with Papua New Guinea authorities on infection control, triage and public health measures.
A final supplementary question.
Will the Minister advise how keeping Australians safe from COVID-19 requires us to also provide assistance to our close neighbours and also to keep our borders strong in far north Queensland?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As the government has announced, from tonight we will suspend passenger flights from Papua New Guinea to Cairns for a 2-week period. I want to assure colleagues and assure the Senate that freight will continue to make sure that the movement of essential and humanitarian supplies is available and continues for Papua New Guinea. We will also suspend charter flights from Papua New Guinea with limited exemptions. We will reduce passenger caps from Port Moresby to Brisbane. We will suspend outbound travel exemptions to Papua New Guinea other than for essential workers. Australia and Papua New Guinea are working in partnership to prevent cross-border transmission, including in the Torres Strait, where, of course, family and cultural cross-border connections are strong. Our vaccine support will also include Papua New Guinea's Western Province. Non-government organisations will play an important role in community engagement and mobilisation activities for these programs. I also want to acknowledge the support of Warren Entsch, the member for Leichhardt, and Queensland Health, which is cooperating in the vaccination.
Senator O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. In my home state of New South Wales, more than 350,000 workers will be affected by the Morrison government ending JobKeeper in just 11 days. How many of the more than 350,000 workers will lose their jobs?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. And, well, indeed, I reject the interjection that was made before I'd even started my response there from Senator Watt. What our government is confident of, and indeed the advice that has been received from and made public in various statements by the Governor of the Reserve Bank, by the Secretary of the Treasury, is to expect to continue to see jobs growth and jobs recovery as a result of the continued stimulus and activity going in across the Australian economy. JobKeeper has absolutely saved many jobs. JobKeeper, in fact, has saved more than 700,000 jobs on the estimates of experts. Other measures we've put in place, for example, the tax cuts that I was talking in this chamber about yesterday, putting an extra $1 billion a month into the pockets of Australian households, are continuing to drive extra economic activity and extra support. The $1.2 billion package announced in recent weeks in relation to support for the aviation, travel and tourism sectors will again provide additional activity job support across the Australian economy. The fact that the investment incentive measures we put in place and the loss carryback measures that are there provide additional support for businesses across the Australian economy and continue to underpin jobs. Now, JobKeeper was, as we always said, intended to be temporary, Mr President, a temporary targeted measure. And what those opposite seem to forget is that's also what the Labor Party also called for. Now, Mr Albanese,
I have Senator O'Neill on a point of order. Senator O'Neill.
There was only one question, so my point is with regard to relevance. I know that Senator Birmingham will roll out the list, but the question is on behalf of workers, 350,000 of them affected by the shutdown of JobKeeper in 11 days. And my question asked one thing: how many of the more than 350,000 workers will lose their jobs? They want to know this information.
I've allowed you to restate your question. The minister was directly talking about the subject matter, which was about the employment impact of that particular policy, so I believe he has been directly relevant, as I can't instruct him how to answer a question nor to accept the terms of a question. Senator Birmingham, to continue.
Thanks, Mr President. So we know plenty of jobs have been saved. We know we've seen growth month after month in terms of new jobs across the Australian economy. And we also know that Mr Albanese said that JobKeeper will need a tapering off. He said that back in May last year. Back in May last year, he said it would need a tapering off.
Senator Birmingham,
and that is precisely what this government has done.
Has expired. Order. 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 I'll call Senator O'Neill when there's order. Senator Watt. Always not good to be the last voice heard, always. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr President. More than 110,000 businesses in New South Wales will be impacted by the JobKeeper ending in just 11 days, with $345 million withdrawn from the local economy each fortnight. How many of the more than 110,000 New South Wales businesses will close?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, 813,600. That's the number of jobs created in the last 8 months. 813,600 jobs added back into the Australian economy. 93% of those who had lost work at the height of the pandemic back in work. And the government delivering on its policies as we had always outlined and promised. We always said that our policies in response to this would be targeted and they'd be proportionate. We always said that JobKeeper would taper off, as indeed the opposition had called for. We also always said that it would come to an end at the appropriate time, as also the opposition called for, because Mr Albanese said that we need a sensible, pragmatic transition out of the process. Senator
Birmingham, I have Senator Watt on a point of order. Senator Birmingham had 8 seconds left, I believe. Senator Watt.
On relevance, in the remaining 8 seconds, perhaps the minister would care to answer the question, which is how many more of the more than 110,000 businesses will close.
I was listening carefully to the ministers. Senator Watt, I'm ruling. Mr. Senator Watt, I allow points of order to emphasise the point of a question, but with respect, I believe the minister was being directly relevant. You're asking me to instruct him to answer in certain terms. He was specifically talking about the policy raise. You've made your point, and there's an opportunity to debate the merits of answers after question time. Senator Birmingham, have you concluded, or do you have 8 seconds remaining? Order.
Mr President, we're simply doing what the Labor Party used to call for, but of course, once again, they've changed their position for political expediency.
Order, Senator Birmingham. Senator O'Neill, a final supplementary question. Order on my right and my left. Order. I'm calling Senator O'Neill for Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Kerry Glassick, founding director of Venue 505 and the old 505 Theatre, the very venue Minister Fletcher used to launch the details of his Live Music Australia program, has said, and I quote, "We have no future in New South Wales without JobKeeper. Venue 505 is closing at the end of March. What does the minister have to say to Kerry?"
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, we have faced—
Order on my left.
We have faced a global economic disruption, the greatest since, the most significant since the Great Depression. Australia has managed to come through this faring better than nearly any other nation. Now, it is not possible for government to guarantee the survival of every single business or of every single job.
Order.
What government needs to do is to make sure that we continue the trajectory of economic growth and jobs growth that we have been on since the depths of this crisis hit. And that is exactly what all of our policies are geared to do. All of our policies are geared to keep businesses sustainable, to keep jobs growing, to generate more jobs, and with 813,000 jobs in the last 8 months, those policies are clearly working.
Time for the answer has expired. Senator Thorpe.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. There were 3 Aboriginal deaths in custody last week, in 1 week, bringing the number to almost 500. We are only 3.3% of this population. Next month marks the 30th anniversary of the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody's final report. Our people are screaming for justice. What will you do to end Aboriginal deaths in custody?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. And these are serious issues that Senator Thorpe raises. All Aboriginal deaths in custody are tragedy, and every single death that occurs in custody are a tragedy. It is an ongoing problem and challenge for the nation that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are overrepresented in our adult and youth justice systems, both as offenders and as victims, and that indeed, while the rates of death in custody for Indigenous prisoners is lower than for non-Indigenous prisoners, any death in custody is one too many. As the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody found, the fundamental issue is that too many Aboriginal people are in custody too often. The new national agreement on closing the gap includes targets for reducing the rates of adult incarceration by at least 15%, which is target 10, and for youth detention amongst Indigenous Australians by at least 30% by 2031, which is target 11. And the Indigenous Advancement Strategy of the government funds activities to complement the efforts of states and territories to improve justice and community safety outcomes for Indigenous Australians. Some $261.3 million has been committed in 2020-21 alone. We recognise the seriousness of these issues and through the Closing the Gap agreement are committed to working with states and territories, but also most importantly individual communities to seek to overcome and address these issues. But we know there is no quick or silver bullet to doing so. It is why, though, we have spelt out clear targets, clear funding and work to try to address this tragedy that ensues.
Senator Thorpe, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. This government needs to close their own gap. It's been 30 years since the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody released its final report. The government refuses to implement all of the report's recommendations that could save black lives today. This would also prevent the loss, trauma and grief that we experience every single day. Why haven't you done anything?
The question has expired. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, I understand that an independent review into the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody was conducted in 2017. At the time it found that the Australian government and governments of all political persuasions had fully or mostly implemented 91% of recommendations for which the Australian government has responsibility. It also found that 18 partially implemented recommendations have largely been superseded by subsequent government actions and policies, that 78% of the 339 recommendations in total, noting that many of those related to states and territories as the operators of the judicial system, have been fully or mostly implemented, 16% partially implemented, and that around 90% of recommendations relating to the safety of Indigenous Australians taken into custody have been fully or mostly implemented.
Yes, point of order for misleading the chamber.
Oh, sorry, Senator Thorpe. A point of order can only be about compliance with the standing orders. Merits of answers can be debated after question time.
Well, point of order on relevance, and the relevance being my question was around what is the government going to do about the recommendations, not give me a spiel on what recommendations have been implemented or not implemented, and a dodgy report.
Senator Thorpe, please.
That they based on desktop only.
I've allowed you to make your point of order. There's an opportunity to debate the merits of answers after question time, but I believe the minister is being directly relevant. Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, the point being the recommendations have overwhelmingly been implemented by governments of all persuasions, but acknowledging there continues to be a job to be done.
Senator Thorpe, a final supplementary question.
Again, there were 3 Aboriginal deaths in custody just last week alone. That's 3 families and communities that are now in terrible pain. What do you have to say to them?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, I would say, and I imagine that I would be joined by all other senators, that we are deeply sorry for their anguish, for their loss, for the pain felt in those families and those communities, for the circumstances that led to those individuals being in custody, for the failings in relation to in systems or in communities that brought them to the point of being in custody, but that we are determined to continue to try to find pathways to reduce the rate of Indigenous incarceration, that we will continue, as governments have been, state and territory, Commonwealth, Labor and Liberal, to implement the recommendations and to go beyond the recommendations in a number of other policies and measures, most recently outlined in the National Agreement on Closing the Gap, and that we're committed to continue to work with communities in partnership to achieve those outcomes.
The answer has expired. Senator Van.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Colbeck. Minister, can you advise the Senate on the progress of the national COVID-19 vaccine rollout, please?
The Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President, and thanks Senator Van for his question. Mr President, we're now into week 4 of the mass vaccine rollout across Australia, and we are prioritising the most vulnerable in society, as we should, to receive the vaccine first, Mr President. Each week, more aged care residents, border, quarantine and frontline health workers have had the opportunity to receive their first dose of the vaccine. This week, Mr President, we also saw the start of the second dose round being administered, so we are now in the position to start to have fully immunised citizens against the COVID-19 virus. Both the Pfizer, BioNTech and the AstraZeneca vaccine require 2 doses to be fully immunised. The Pfizer vaccine 21 days apart, Mr President, and the AstraZeneca vaccine 12 weeks apart. Senator Van, I'm sure you'll be glad to hear that vaccinations are gathering pace in your home state of Victoria. So far, more than 38,900 people in Victoria have had a jab against COVID. Next week, we'll begin Phase 1B of our vaccination program, which includes vulnerable groups, including older people, people with underlying medical conditions. Mr President, we are enlisting general practices across the country to play a major role in the vaccination rollout and have been heartened by the enthusiasm of GPs to get on board our vaccination program. 1,100 will be commencing next week. Mr President, we thank all Australians, including our frontline workers, GPs, for their commitment and hard work in rolling out the vaccination in this country. We are getting on with delivering the vaccine, and it will underpin our health and economic recovery.
Senator Van, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister also update the Senate on how many people have been vaccinated so far in Australia?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, as I've said earlier today, more than 203,500 Australians have been vaccinated as a part of our vaccination rollout so far, including more than 45,000 aged care residents in over 500 aged care facilities. Indeed, we've been progressively ramping up our rollout in aged care homes, and today 26 facilities across the country will receive vaccinations, Mr President. Healthcare teams will also be visiting 35 aged care facilities for the second time to deliver second doses to our most vulnerable citizens. Mr President, in coming weeks the vaccination program will reach more than 2,500 residential aged care facilities, and more than 183,000 residents will be vaccinated, including 339,000 staff.
Senator Van, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister expand on how Australia's general practitioner GPs will assist with the mass vaccine rollout in the country?
Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr President. And Senator Van, more than 1,000, in fact more than 1,100 general practices will join the COVID vaccination program from next week. GP services will progressively come online from March 22, which is what we said would happen when we announced the vaccination rollout program. By the end of April, we'll have more than 4,000 GP services assisting us with the vaccination program. This staged scale-up will align with the supply of AstraZeneca vaccine, and as more vaccine becomes available, more services will come online. There are 6 million people in the second phase of the vaccine rollout, and I want to assure Australians that everyone who wants a vaccine will get one. But, Mr President, I would also urge them to be patient. As the vaccine becomes available, we will make it available to Australians.
Senator Gallagher. Order. On my right, Senator Gallagher.
Thanks, Mr President. And my question is to the Acting Minister for Defence, Senator Payne. Defence Minister Senator Reynolds promised last year to secure a contracted requirement of 60% minimum local content for the Future Submarines program. Can the Acting Minister for Defence confirm that this contractual agreement has still not been finalised, and when will the revised contract actually be finalised?
The Acting Minister for Defence, Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator Gallagher for his question. The government, of course, expects defence industry doing business with Australia to meet their commitments, to manage their costs and to deliver projects on time and according to our specifications. And that, Mr President, will not be done at the expense of Australian jobs and Australian industry. In the case of the attack-class submarine, we expect that Naval Group's commitment to spend a minimum of 60% of their contract value in Australia will be finalised as a matter of priority. As we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has never been more important for the government to back in Australian industry, and that is what we are going to do. We have been very clear that we will not agree to provisions in the Strategic Partnering Agreement that are not meaningful and measurable over the long duration of the program or dilute the protections we currently have. The government is a strong client and will maintain a fit-for-purpose agreement for decades to come. Mr President, I am advised that Defence and Naval Group have made progress on the agreement, with details being worked through to finalise the amendments to the Strategic Partnering Agreement.
Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Thanks, Mr President. The Chief Executive of the Australian Industry and Defence Network, Mr Brent Clark, has said that the agreement, and I quote, will go to the very heart of how Australian industry is to be brought into the supply chain for the submarine, and that it needs to be made public to ensure transparency. Is Mr Clark wrong?
Senator Payne.
Mr President, I haven't seen the specific remarks of Mr Clark, so I'll take those on face value from Senator Gallagher, of course. I do want to be clear about the amendments to the Strategic Partnering Agreement, though, because they'll detail provisions that apply to Naval Group's achievement of the commitment, including both remedies and incentives. And as with all provisions in the Strategic Partnering Agreement, and indeed other major defence contracts, as Senator Gallagher is well aware from his extended period of time on committees that deal with these matters in the Parliament, the specifics of these amendments will remain commercially sensitive. Similar to our other projects, AIC performance will of course remain subject to parliamentary scrutiny through the Senate estimates process, and the program will remain the subject, as it has been, of ongoing regular reviews by the ANAO.
Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. The Acting Minister of Defence, Senator Payne, has previously argued against a local minimum content requirement in contracts for the future attack-class submarines, asserting it would create a ceiling, not a floor on local content. Is this why the Acting Minister will refuse to reveal details of any Australian content requirement, as reported in today's Australian Financial Review?
Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. The answer to Senator Gallagher's question is no. I've been clear in relation to the finalisation of the 60% AIC commitment, the nature of the protection of the provisions in terms of the commercial sensitivity of those, and they are matters, as I said, of which Senator Gallagher is well aware. Mr President, in concluding my answer, may I also seek the indulgence of the Senate to refer to the members of the National Rural Women's Coalition muster who are here in the gallery in the Senate chamber today, from Christmas Island to Pakenham and Hamilton to Noosa Shire and Weipa to Wagga Wagga and multiple locations in between. May I welcome them to the Senate.
Senator Rennick.
My question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Could the Minister please update the Senate on how the Morrison government is supporting small business and the Australian economy to recover strongly from COVID-19, including through our plan for lower taxes, which is giving Australian households and small businesses more of their money back?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Rennick for his question. And, Mr President, the Morrison government, those of us on this side of the chamber, the one thing we well and truly all agree on is that tax cuts well and truly benefit the economy. We believe that lower taxes are the best way for our economy to thrive. What do, Mr President? Well, they put more money in the pockets of hard-working Australians, and of course that money is the money of those hard-working Australians, so we're really giving it back to them. But we're also putting money back into the pockets of small businesses. And as we know, when a small business gets by with a tax cut, they actually invest back into their business, and that's a good thing for all Australians. Mr President, since last July, about $9 billion in tax cuts has landed in the pockets of around 8.8 million Australians. $9.9 billion in tax cuts has landed in the pockets of around 8.8 million Australians. This is money that has been returned back to them. And what has it done? Well, it's boosted household balance sheets, and what we've also seen is consumer confidence rise, now above pre-pandemic levels. And, Mr President, we're not stopping there, though. A further $2 billion per month in tax cuts will flow to Australians between now and the end of September. Why is that, Mr President? Because the Morrison government, we believe in giving people back their hard-earned money by way of reducing their taxes. And, Mr President, what that also means for small businesses is that when households are able to keep more of their money, $9 billion now back in the pockets of families, they are able to go out and support those local businesses. And of course, when you support a local business, what you're ultimately doing is supporting jobs. And that's what this government is all about, supporting jobs in the economy.
Senator Rennick, a supplementary question.
Wow, that was fantastic. Well done, Senator Cash. What additional support is the government providing to our 3.5 million small business owners as Australia emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impacts?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, I think those on the other side just said not enough. Well, guess what? Guess what? We're providing them with a further tax cut. And as you know, Mr President, what we're doing for small business builds on the government's record of actually reducing tax cuts for small business, or reducing taxes for small business, something those on the other side just don't agree with. And we'll get to that shortly. Mr President, last year we reduced the small business company tax rate to 26%. These changes, of course, are a part of what the Morrison government is doing to accelerate small business tax cuts. We also brought forward that tax relief for SMEs by 5 years. In fact, Mr President, under the Morrison government, small businesses are paying the lowest company tax rate since 1967. But, Mr President, we're not stopping there. We will now reduce that. The small business company tax rate will fall to 25% on the 1st of July, because we know when you back small business,
Senator
you back
Cash.
jobs.
Senator Rennick, a final supplementary question. Senator O'Neill. Senator Rennick. Senator O'Neill. Senator Rennick.
Can the minister outline why the Morrison government's strong and effective record of supporting Australia's 3.5 million small businesses through tax relief, red tape reduction and hiring incentives is so critical to our economic recovery, as well as any risks that small businesses and their employees face during the next phase of our economic recovery?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, I've got to take that very quiet interjection from the Leader of the Opposition, Senator Wrong. Well, here we go. And you're right, Senator Wrong, here we go, because it's important that the Australian people understand exactly what the Labor Party will commit to delivering to them if they were ever elected to office. It's not bad enough that they took to the last election a commitment to slug Australians' colleagues with $387 billion worth of tax. $387 billion in taxes, and of course then, colleagues, can you imagine the state of the economy if that had occurred and then COVID-19 had hit? But they didn't stop there. The former Leader of the Opposition, he has yet again confirmed to the Australian people that when it comes to lowering taxes, the Labor Party, they just don't believe there's any point, because to quote him, this is what he said: "What is the point of giving a tax cut?" Well, Mr President, I'd ask all those hard-working Australians out there who are benefiting from—
I have Senator Kitching on a point of order. Senator Kitching.
Point of order is that's misleading. The full quote was, "What's the point of a tax cut if you don't have a job?"
Point of order, Senator Kitching.
And Senator Birmingham misled the chamber yesterday.
Senator Kitching, all senators know that there is an opportunity to debate the merits of answers after question time. Points of order are not the appropriate time to raise the point of debate. I think, Senator Cash, you had 5 seconds left while I was trying to— Senator Cash has concluded her answer. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, representing the Prime Minister. The Attorney-General has instituted legal proceedings against the national broadcaster, the ABC. Yesterday, the Prime Minister said, in an abundance of caution and to avoid any perception of conflicts of interest, the Attorney-General will not perform certain functions that may relate to the Federal Court or the ABC. Could you please state each and every function the Prime Minister is referring to? Could you please list which roles and functions and which minister have each of these functions been delegated to?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. And Mr President, I firstly would make the point that the Attorney-General, as with any other Australian, are entitled to initiate defamation proceedings, and they're entitled to do that against the ABC or anybody else who is alleged to have defamed them. He is still entitled to initiate defamation proceedings, Senator Keneally.
Order.
In relation to the questions that Senator Hanson-Young asked, I'd firstly point out that at this point in time, the Acting Attorney-General, Senator Cash, fulfils all of the functions of the Attorney-General's responsibilities, assisted in the delegated responsibilities by Senator Stoker, the Assistant Minister to the Attorney-General. The government, out of an abundance of caution, has sought advice from the Solicitor-General in relation to the functions of the Attorney-General to avoid any perception that any conflicts of interest may arise when he returns to fulfil his office. Out of caution, the government has indicated that until that advice is finalised, the Attorney-General and his office will not perform certain functions that may relate to the administration of the Federal Court or to the ABC. The administration of the Federal Court or to the ABC. The government is, as I said, seeking that advice from the Solicitor-General that will fully inform the practices and processes that are put in place upon the Attorney-General's return to work.
Senator Hanson-Young, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like the Minister to take the question on notice, given we don't have the full list from him. I'd like to know how the Attorney-General, who has been accused of rape, is now suing the national broadcaster for defamation, can oversee national consent laws, the establishment of a Commonwealth Integrity Commission, defamation law reform, and indeed any other functions of the Attorney-General's portfolio.
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. And I note many across the parliament, past, present, including Senator Hanson-Young, have used defamation laws at times. Now, the Attorney-General will return to his office informed by the advice of the Solicitor-General around the conduct of those duties. I can't take the first question on notice to preempt the advice and information of the Solicitor-General, but certainly we will make sure that it is transparent to all once that advice is received and the attorney returns to work about exactly the procedures that are put in place. Where there are duties that need to be fulfilled by Senator Stoker, we have full confidence that the Assistant Minister to the Attorney-General will fulfil those duties fully and with absolute competence and confidence.
Senator Hanson-Young, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Will the Prime Minister ensure that the Attorney-General is recused from all Cabinet discussions relating to the ABC, including budget deliberations?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr President, I note that the lists of members of Cabinet committees are published. The Attorney-General is not a member of the Expenditure Review Committee of Cabinet. But if decisions, Senator Wong, if decisions are taken in relation to the management of any perceived or potential conflicts of interest, then those decisions will be consistently applied across all ministerial and cabinet functions.
Senator Gallagher.
President, my question is also to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. The Minister has just confirmed that legal advice has been sought from the Solicitor-General to facilitate Attorney-General Porter's return to the Cabinet. Why is it that the Prime Minister is willing to seek legal advice to ensure Mr Porter can return to work, but not to ensure Mr Porter is a fit and proper person to retain the role of Attorney-General?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Yes, Mr President. Advice is being sought in relation to ensuring that there are no potential for any perceived conflicts of interest to exist. That's consistent with many previous precedents in relation to management of conflicts of interest.
The Minister has concluded his answer.
Just avoided the
order. Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
It is hard to justify, I must say. The supplementary yesterday, the Minister said in question time that as an interim measure, until advice is received, the Attorney-General's office will have no engagement with the Federal Court or the ABC. When will this advice be received? And given the Attorney-General's defamation action could be appealed to the High Court, will that prohibition on engagement be extended?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, the second part of the question from Senator Gallagher obviously depends upon the advice of the Solicitor-General, and the government will receive that advice, I'm sure, which will be provided as soon as the Solicitor-General is in a position to provide it.
Senator Gallagher, a final supplementary question.
Thank you. The Morrison government has appointed a junior assistant minister to respond to the Respect at Work report after it sat on Mr Porter's desk for over a year, prohibited the Attorney-General from engaging with the Federal Court and prohibited the Attorney-General from engaging with the ABC. Why is it Mr Morrison is willing to go to this extent to facilitate the Attorney-General's return to Cabinet when he's not even willing to read the complaint or seek legal advice?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, Senator Stoker, since her appointment to the ministry, has been fulfilling duties that are allocated to assistant ministers in a range of different portfolios. This was an appointment of an assistant minister to the Attorney-General that had not previously existed, and quite appropriately, responsibilities were passed from the Attorney-General to Senator Stoker at the time. And indeed, she is pursuing further responses to the Respect at Work inquiry, further responses to it, I add, because indeed the government has gotten on with a number of aspects of responding to the Respect at Work inquiry, and the $2.1 million provided to support and implement a number of recommendations, work to establish the Respect at Work Council, which was established and is due to meet for the first time this Friday, the establishment of the Respect at Work website as a central platform for resources on sexual harassment, the conduct of a national survey on sexual harassment.
Has expired. Senator McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reductions, Senator Seselja. Can the Minister please update the Senate on how the Morrison government's technology, not taxes approach to energy policy is creating new jobs, strengthening our economy and reducing emissions?
Order. 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 I couldn't hear the second part of that question. I'm going to ask Senator McLaughlin to ask it again. Order. Senator McLaughlin, please ask your question
Mr President.
again.
Can the Minister please update the Senate on how the Morrison government's technology, not taxes, approach to energy policy is creating new jobs, strengthening our economy and reducing emissions?
I'm going to insist, Senator Wong, I'm going to insist on order during the question being asked so I can hear it for my own purposes. The Minister representing the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction, Senator Seselja.
Well, thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator McLaughlin for that outstanding question. The Morrison government is delivering on our plan to provide Australian families and businesses with the affordable and reliable power they need to help cement our economic recovery and to create jobs. And as I updated senators in February, we have delivered 8 consecutive quarters of year-on-year CPI retail price reductions, and prices are set to continue to fall, putting more money in the hands of Australians, more money in the
Senator
hands of
Ayres.
Australian households and Australian business. And I would think that those opposite should be welcoming those falls in energy prices. But we're also reducing our emissions, all the while reducing our emissions. And I know that senators will welcome the fact that Australia has reduced our emissions by 19% on 2005 levels. And I would have thought Senator McAllister would welcome that fact, would welcome the fact that we've reduced them by 19% whilst lowering energy prices. I mean, why won't you join with us in celebrating with Australian families, in celebrating with Australian households? I mean, even Senator Watt would be welcoming that. Even the Greens should be welcoming
Order
our
on
reduction.
Senators McAllister and Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. President. We should all be welcoming, and we are on track. We are on track, and when we compare our effort, our 19% reduction since 2005, compared to New Zealand with 1%, 0.1% reduction in Canada. This is something we should all be celebrating because we have overachieved on our target by 639 million tonnes. Our emissions fell faster than Canada, New Zealand, Japan, United States, more than double the OECD average. So you can do this, you can deliver emissions reductions while delivering lower energy prices for Australian families, for Australian households, for Australian businesses. That's something we can all celebrate. That's something we can all get behind.
Senator McLaughlin, a supplementary question.
Can the minister outline to the Senate how the Morrison government is delivering reliable energy while meeting our international commitments?
Senator Seselja.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we are proud to be meeting and beating our
Senator
international
Seselja,
commitments.
Not an error on your part. There appears to be a problem with that microphone. Could you try and use the one adjacent to you, please? There's a feedback coming from the microphone, so it might be easier. My apologies. Order. Senator Seselja.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And we are proud to be meeting and beating our international commitments without destroying jobs and without wrecking our economy as those opposite would do. And we know Labor would do it. We know the Greens would do it. I mean, the Greens are out there, you know, the un-Australian Greens Party, arguing against our contribution, our nominee for the OECD. But we are getting it done. We are getting it done. We are actually doing it without a carbon tax. We are doing it through a technology, not taxes approach. And that is something that ensures we continue to support jobs, we continue to support household budgets, we continue to deliver on our emissions reductions target. We do it without a carbon tax. We do it by investing in technology. We do it by backing Australian business, by backing Australian innovation. That's our policy. That's what we're going to continue to do, and it would be time for those opposite to start supporting those successful policies.
Senator McLaughlin, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can the minister please advise why it is important to focus on delivering secure, reliable and affordable energy for Australian families and businesses, and of any risks to this policy approach?
Senator Seselja.
Well, thank you, Senator McLaughlin, and I thank him for the question. It is vital. It is absolutely vital that we focus on cheaper and more reliable energy, because that is what Australians expect, and that's what we are delivering. And Senator McAllister can interject all she likes, because unfortunately there are risks, and it is from those opposite, Labor and the Greens, whose only prescription when it comes to this area is more taxes. You know, leading the Labor Party's policy is the member for McMahon. Who's never seen a tax that he didn't support, backed, of course, by the Queensland Resources spokesman, Senator Murray Watt. Labor's car tax alone, of course, would have added $3,000 to the cost of a new vehicle. Remember their retiree tax, the housing tax, the car tax, the carbon tax. Labor is all about taxes. This government is about technology, not taxes, lowering our emissions and lowering energy prices.
Senator Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Payne. After months of uncertainty for the 500,000 workers across our tourism sector, the government made a chaotic announcement of meagre support beyond the withdrawal of JobKeeper. In this chaotic announcement, the government has flagged a total cap of 800,000 discounted tickets. Now that the government has been forced to expand the scheme due to political pressure, Which of the 13 original locations will have their share of this support slashed?
Minister representing the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Thanks Senator Farrell very much for his question. I reject the premise of Senator Farrell's question because what Senator Farrell has failed to acknowledge is this important next step in the government's National Economic Recovery Plan, which is about supporting businesses and workers and regions who are still finding it very difficult in the post-COVID-19 pandemic period. And the package's mix of whether it is discounted airline tickets, loans for business, direct support to keep planes in the air, airline workers in their jobs is an important part of building that bridge to back to a normal way of life for Australians. Now, the centrepiece of this package is a demand-driven program. It is, as the senator said, 800,000 half-price airfares to actually enable Australians to travel, to actually support tourism operators and businesses and travel agents and airlines who have been dealing with these challenges. And I don't understand why those opposite do not support that initiative to actually engage with those businesses, to actually enable those Australians to travel. So the package ultimately will take more tourists, whether it is to our hotels and our cafes, to go on tours, to explore our own backyard, and that does mean more jobs and investment for the tourism and aviation sectors. It is a win for local communities. The local communities that were spelt out here earlier in the week in the chamber don't understand why those opposite don't support those local communities and don't want to support them with this package, Mr President. The half-price ticket program, as we've said, initially operating to 13 key regions. And other new measures in the support package include that new international aviation support to assist Australia's international passenger airlines to maintain over 8,000 core international aviation jobs, support for regular passenger airports to meet their domestic security screening costs, a new aviation services assistance support program to help ground handling companies
Senator
to meet
Payne,
the cost of
time
mandatory
for the
training,
answer
certification
has
and accreditation.
Senator Farrell, a supplementary question.
I do have one, thank you, Mr President. On Sunday, the Deputy Prime Minister on the ABC's Insiders program couldn't answer a simple question about whether this program was capped or driven by actual demand and need. Can you please tell us what it is?
Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. I think we've been quite clear about the 800,000 airfares, Mr President. 800,000 airfares that will enable Australians to do that travelling that we've been talking about, that is about motivating, incentivising, if you like, Australians to travel around their own country.
Order, Senator Payne. I have Senator Wong on a point of order. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr President. The point of order is direct relevance. The question was very precise, and it was the same question the DPM could not answer. Is this program capped or demand-driven? I ask the minister to return to the question.
I'll let you restate the question, Senator Wong. I was listening very carefully, and unless I misheard, I thought I heard a number referred to. I can't instruct a minister how to answer a question, so I'll call Senator Payne to continue. Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr President. We know that there will be— I've mentioned the 800,000 figure, Mr President. That is 800,000 half-price tickets to travel around Australia. An opportunity, Mr President, which has, for example, seen flight searches on Virgin Australia increase almost 80% following the announcement of the—
Senator Wong on a point of order.
Direct relevance. Didn't ask about booking system or travel agents. Asked a budget question. We asked a budget question, Mr President, and I would ask you to remind the minister of the question.
I'm listening very carefully, Senator Wong. I take the point that it was a question about a program, and I heard earlier the minister refer to a number, but I can't instruct a minister how the terms in which to answer a question. I've allowed you to reinforce the question. But it is up to the minister to determine what terms in which she answers it. I'm listening very carefully, and at this point I believe the minister is being directly relevant. Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for that ruling. Mr. President, I was indicating what the impact of the announcement of 800,000 half-price airfares and the associated—
Order. Senator Payne. Senator Wong on a point of order.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask you to go away and reconsider that ruling after question time, looking at the Hansard. I again raise a point of order on direct relevance. The question relates directly to whether this program has been funded as a capped program or a demand-driven program.
I'm happy, Senator Wong, to take— I will always accept the request of a senator to review the Hansard. My initial reaction is that when the minister is talking about a specific number, to ask me to go further and ask the minister to— when a specific— And Senator Wong, I'll take the interjection. That goes to, in my view, trying to instruct the minister of the terms of how to answer a question. There's an opportunity to debate it. I will reflect on this and come back to the chamber. Senator Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As I was saying, Mr. President, what we have seen in response to this measure is bookings increasing almost 40%.
Order,
Flight
Senator Payne. Time for the answer has
40%.
expired. Senator Wong, Senator Farrell has the call. Senator Payne, Senator Farrell has the call for his final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a final supplementary question. Minister, how will the 800,000 tickets be distributed across the destination? Is there an agreement with the airlines and operators, or is this again being decided by a colour-coded spreadsheet?
Senator Payne.
Well, Mr. President, I'm not sure that I understand the details of Senator Farrell's question, but this is demand-driven about where passengers wish to go, where Australians want to travel. And as the Tourism Minister said in comments the day before yesterday, I think we are going to continue to work with the aviation sector. For example, if there are other destinations we need to add, we will do that. It is about giving people the confidence to travel, because if people have the confidence to travel, we know that the demand and the will is there, and we know that they will take that up.
Senator Birmingham.
I ask that further questions be placed on notice.